Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and I keep getting this question asked to me every single time we stream here on YouTube. By the way, if you want to catch some of the streams on YouTube, we have them every single day from 5 to 7 Eastern Time. I don't really get to plug my streams that often, but the best way to do it is to simply be subscribed to the channel. But sometimes subscription is not enough, so to make sure you're always notified to the streams, make sure to hit the notification bell down below and join our Discord group. Link in the description, as I usually post an announcement every time we go live if you guys want to participate, whether it's beta, EU, US, whatever server we play on. Anyway, a lot of you guys keep asking me what class am I going to play, and as somebody who's done rogue content, mostly Outlaw rogue content for the longest time that this channel has been around on, I would expect so many of you guys to just think automatically that yes, this guy's most likely going to play rogue. He's been playing rogue this whole time. What else is going to change? But I still get so many people asking me what class am I going to play. BFA is an exciting expansion, and every new expansion offers so many people the opportunity to try something new, to play a class that's completely foreign to them, and as a lot of people should. It's exactly the reason why I still don't play a Boomkin. Even though I used to play one in Cataclysm, come Mist of Pandaria, I didn't like the way that the class was changing, so I had to swap to a Rogue, and it's a class that fit me like a glove. And when coming up to the BFA, I think I'm still going to play Rogue, and I think I'm still going to play Outlaw. What I like about Outlaw is actually a lot of things. They're basically morphing Outlaw Rogue of Legion with a lot of the RNG elements of Roll the Bones, and then the range stun, and then the Grappling-Hook, but also bringing back a lot of the sustained damage of what a Combat Rogue was. So they're really using Combat Rogue as a stone, in a way. Just something to hold your ground, hold some base, but then the playstyle and the flavor is going to come mostly from the Outlaw Rogue side of the Rogue spec. So I really like what Blizzard is doing with it so far. If the game ships as it is right now, with some bug fixes here and there and certain overpowered items being maybe taken out of the game or nerfed, I honestly would be a happy camper. So in this video, I kind of want to go over some of the things that I like particularly about Outlaw, some of the changes you guys might enjoy. If you thought that, oh, I don't want to play some RNG spec, not really up to my par, what are you talking about, mate? Like, if you weren't just on board with Outlaw, and I understand why people wouldn't be, I understand the stigma, but in this video, I kind of want to give you guys maybe a different view, a different appeal to Outlaw. You might enjoy it. The first one being is the buff mechanic. Let's talk about Roll the Bones. Roll the Bones or Slice and Dice, which one is going to be stronger in the long run? I feel that with the changes that they're making to Outlaw Rogue, Roll the Bones is still going to play a part. But having one buff, I don't think is going to be the end game. Your abilities, Saber Slash, Pistol Shots, all your procs, all your Dispatch run-throughs, as well as your Between the Eyes and Killing Sprees, all these abilities by default deal good damage. So that's going to be pretty exciting, the fact that your abilities actually deal good damage no matter what. Having one buff even allows you opportunity to play with your Azeroth pieces of gear, where if you have one buff, you get like a bunch of agility instead. So it'll be a damage increase regardless. So getting one buff is not going to be as bad. But so far I've been able to test, especially for PvP, whether you play Roll the Bones, whether you play Slice and Dice, it makes very little difference in terms of your damage output. Slice and Dice is more consistent. Roll the Bones gives you the flavor of different playstyles and certain buffs for certain abilities or combinations. But past that, that's really about it. I feel that if you're going to be somebody who's going to do endgame mythic raiding, or if somebody who's going to want to do endgame like 20 plus, 30 plus mythic plus dungeons, then yeah, there might be a certain talent row that might be more powerful in one case or another. But I feel that the choice between Roll the Bones and Slice and Dice is more open-ended than we think. Roll the Bones offering you maybe like a Stack and Haze buff, or maybe Adrenaline Rush guarantee for 2 buffs, where you have a dedicated burst with buffs, or Slice and Dice just being consistent. So far what I've seen on the beta, it doesn't make that much of a difference in terms of huge margins, so I'm very excited about that coming into BFA. The second thing, Grappling-Hook, it's a blast. The ability is baseline, something that was a talent, something that we actually even had to spec into when it comes to PvP or PvE, is now becoming baseline. This ability has been absolutely amazing, absolutely awesome, so I really appreciate Blizzard giving us something like this as baseline. I feel that the spec is going to be a little bit closer to Subtlety and Assassination in terms of your PvP capabilities. One thing you're going to miss that the other specs have is a Mortal Strike effect, a healing reduction effect to you. But as an Outlaw, you're still somebody who brings a lot of team utility. Currently in Legion, Outlaw benefits the team by applying Tricks of the Trade buff, 15% damage increase for both you and your team member, ranged stuns, cooldown reduction, fairly good burst, pretty decent cooldowns overall, lots of mobility, so the spec is still going to retain a lot of these things going into BFA. You also get talent, a very overpowered talent, that reduces the cooldown of your blind by 30 seconds. So while the other rogues having to wait full 2 minutes before blind is back up off of cooldown, you can get yours a little bit faster. I feel like that talent alone is going to narrow the gap between all the different specs, which I think for a lot of you, it'll allow you to play what spec you want to play based on playstyle rather than what's currently good, what's currently in the meta, and I think the more flexibility and freedom the player has, the better. Another thing I like about Outlaw, again, mostly for PvP, Acrobatic Strikes in PvP. I've been dueling people here and there's moments where I can actually weave around enemies. Outlaw has always had some crazy range to your melee abilities. The only other spec that had something like this is a Survival Hunter by default. But every melee being complete full melee class is something that we're used to. We're used to just everybody having full melee. Have to be right up front with the enemy. Outlaw can have some reach. Now that you don't need to spec for Grappling-Hook baseline, you can play with Acrobatic Strikes. In PvP, what I like doing is just running and weaving circles, just staying out of melee range of the enemy, still hitting them with saber slashes and pistol shots, and it feels very, very exciting to just be able to weave around enemies. Very, very cool for Outlaw, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun when it comes to the actual content. In dungeons and raids, you're able to avoid mechanics that would otherwise kill you because you have a little bit more range, you have a little bit more leeway without having to stop DPS in the boss, and in PvP, you can just weave circles around enemies where they can't even touch you if you're able to be fast enough. And of course, Killing Spree is a viable talent now. That is awesome. Still a talent, still not baseline. A lot of people would love to see the whole Killing Spree come back to Outlaw. Actually, people would even like the whole red buff mechanic to come back to Outlaw. And even just while we're at it, just change the name from Outlaw back to Combat so we can just call it a day. But Killing Spree is actually a viable ability now. Whether it's PvE, whether it's PvP, it seems to do actually decent damage. I'm not sure what the hell Blizzard was doing with it when it comes to Legion, it just was really hard to balance, but I feel like they found this nice happy medium of what an Outlaw Rogue is, a mix between Outlaw of Legion and Combat Rogue of the old, where you actually deal decent damage. So this ability becomes a great cleave ability, becomes pretty good burst ability, and actual good cooldown with grabbing. It's not quite the mobility ability that it used to be, as it still teleports you back to where you started, but it's still very, very cool, and I love the fact that we actually can use it again without having to spec into something like Alacrity and losing all capability of even pressing the phone button. Next is gonna sound a little bit weird, but I do like the self-heal of an Outlaw Rogue. You know, when you think of Outlaw, you're thinking of a pirate, and which pirate is gonna play by the rules? In PvP, you can get an honor talent, which is something we just haven't seen anybody really use for the longest time, where you get a second Crimson Vial. It's basically work a lot like a health stone, and will still tick over time, but together with a talent of Iron Stomach, all heals, all Crimson Vials, all Hellstones are 40% effective or something along those lines. They're more effective and they heal you for a lot more. So you can have 2 Crimson Vials, they give you a lot of healing back to back to back. And I kind of find it fun for PvP. It's almost like you're the scoundrel, you're gouging enemies, blinding them, stunning them at distance, vanishing, you know, and now you have 2 concoctions that you can chug down, and you can basically be the rum rogue. You can be the self-drinker rogue, kind of like an alchemist, making a bunch of self-healing potions and whatnot. I really like that, and that's something that's really been drawing to me into Outlaw, to play that more in BFA than I am currently playing in Legion. Also, Pistol Shot is a thing. Pistol Shot as an ability actually deals good damage. Pistol Shot has always been kind of weird. When it comes to playing Outlaw for PvE in particular, it's an ability where it would proc off your Saber Slash, or I guess in this case Sinister Strike is what the new name for it now, I guess the old name for it now, going into BFA. Sinister Strike can still proc your free hits with Sinister Strike, can still proc your Pistol Shot, but Pistol Shot now deals actual good damage. It does cost energy though, but every time it procs, it'll cost only half the energy that you would normally spend into it. But even when you're running around pistol shotting enemies from a distance, whether it's a PvP target, whether it's a PvE target in a raid environment, dungeon environment, or out in the world, it doesn't feel all that terrible, or completely all that terrible, to just pistol shot something to kind of kite it and keep it at bay. So it's kind of cool to have a rogue that's not quite a range spec of rogue, but to have some range capabilities, it is definitely kind of nice, and I really do appreciate it. I really like what Blizzard has been doing with it so far. I like the capabilities that it offers for it, as well as the proc of it just fits right in with the spec. So if I were to kind of conclude everything, Outlaw is getting a nice facelift for BFA. I never felt the spec was in a bad spot, but it didn't really quite rub the right way with everybody. I always thought of it as kind of a difficult spec in terms of the roll the bones mechanic. Lots of people just tossed it away and said, oh, it's an RNG spec, it'll never work, whatever, whatever. Everybody picked Subtlety and Assassination as the more viable spec because they were just more consistent. But I think Outlaw going into BFA is going to add a little bit of the consistency while still allowing the player to choose how they want to play. If you want to be a predictable guy with the most predictable talents ever, nothing all that exciting or fun, you're more than welcome to play Slice and Dice. You'll have good damage regardless. If you're somebody who wants a little bit of that unpredictability, somebody who wants to adjust their playstyle, Roll the Bones is going to be for you. But whether you pick one or the other, it won't make that much of a difference because the spec on its own has a very stable footing regardless. Your Sinister Strikes deal good damage, your procs for pistol shots will deal good damage, your Between the Eyes, your Dispatches, which are in your run-throughs, your Killing Sprees, all your talents deal good damage no matter what you do. A lot of your abilities simply hit hard. And I know that I'm going to get a few comments saying, but Dalaran, this are the numbers on a beta, you shouldn't be taking a look at the spec in terms of how it plays on a beta. I will say the spec doesn't feel overpowered, it doesn't feel underpowered, it feels just right on a beta. And I would say after playing it, this would be a pretty reasonable assumption that the spec is likely not going to get too changed. If anything, maybe overpowered items and Azeroth gear might be something that will be affecting us in the future. But when you make a fresh 110 character just to test things out, and you're trying to go against other fresh 110 characters just to test things out, it feels really, really good to play. And overall, going into level 120, as I have a geared character, I don't see anything else besides Outlaw rogues, if I ever do see rogues. There's barely any assassination, barely any subtlety. It looks like a lot more people are enjoying and playing around with Outlaw, be the Slice and Dice build or be the Roll the Bones build. So since the spec has had so much success in BFA beta, I think it's going to have plenty of success 2 months from now. Anyway, this is my video on Outlaw Rogues. Let me know your thoughts, guys, in the comments below. What do you think about Outlaw Rogues, and are you even planning on maybe even playing one? And if Outlaw Rogue is not really a cup of tea, what are you going to play? Are you going to play the Subtlety, or are you going to play Assassination? Get it? Cup of tea? Subtlety? Okay, I'm going to go now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.